Welcome to the 2020-21 OHSAA Boys Tennis State Rules Interpretation Meeting for Coaches. The voice that you will hear throughout this presentation is that of former OHSAA Senior Director of Compliance and Tennis Administrator, Roxanne Price. Please take some time to read this slide before advancing through the presentation. If you are using a Chromebook, we strongly recommend that you stop and use a different device to complete this presentation. If you proceed using a Chromebook, your attendance may not be recorded. Upon completion of this meeting, please take the opportunity to take a screenshot of the final slide and then also check your state meeting attendance within your myOHSAA profile. OHSAA regulations stipulate that the head coach, an assistant high school coach, or the school's athletic director are the only ones who may receive credit for viewing this mandatory rules meeting presentation. This presentation must be viewed by an appropriate individual for the school or team to participate in the OHSAA tournament. No credit will be received, and it would be a disservice to the student athletes if a coach does not view this meeting, so please ensure that your completion is recorded in your profile by checking with your athletic director upon completion. At the time of the recording of this meeting, the sport administrator of the OHSAA staff has yet to be determined. Until further notice, please email Bo Rugg at brugg@ohsaa.org if you have any OHSAA related questions such as sport regulations, general sport regulations, or OHSAA eligibility questions for your student athlete. If you have any playing game rules related questions, please contact one of the two state rule interpreters listed below.
The Ohio High School Athletic Association's mission is to regulate and administer interscholastic athletic competition in a fair and equitable manner while promoting the values of participation in interscholastic athletics as an integral part of a student's educational experience. It's important to note that students who participate in interscholastic athletics at an OHSAA member school must be eligible in all respects. This means that all bylaws and sports regulations apply to all students equally. Students have to be eligible in all respects in order to participate in interscholastic tennis. Let me explain to you a bit how this presentation will work. We're going to cover various topics. Those topics will include OHSAA regulations and some State Department of Education regulations, such as a pupil activity permit, which is an Ohio Department of Education requirement. You may not coach without the proper permit. We'll talk about the tennis calendar, season start dates, and tournament dates. There'll also be an explanation of the revised non-interscholastic regulation for students. You'll want to pay particular attention to this, as students are now permitted to participate in 2 non-interscholastic events while still being a member of the school team. There are some parameters, so you'll need to understand the parameters and the necessity to have an approved waiver before students participate in these non-interscholastic events. We'll talk about out-of-state regulations. We'll talk about uniforms. And remember, the hat is part of the uniform, and students must be properly uniformed in order to participate in an interscholastic contest. New for the school year is a sudden cardiac arrest requirement, which is also a requirement of the State Department of Education, and all coaches must undergo this training. We'll speak a little bit about service animals, and that dogs are the only animals that are permitted to be service animals, and the permissibility of these animals at tennis events. We'll also do a presentation of important USTA rules. So pay attention and sit back and get ready for the presentation. There are written materials that are available to assist you with the coaching of boys tennis. The 2019 Boys Tennis Manual for Coaches is available on the OHSAA tennis page, which can be found on our website at www.ohsaa.org. Also available on the OHSAA website is the handbook. The handbook includes regulations that affect a student's ability to participate in interscholastic athletics. You can also find the tennis regulations in the OHSAA handbook, as well as the general sports regulations that affect all sports.
The 2020 NFHS Friends at Court document is available on the OHSAA Boys Tennis webpage. You can also conduct a Google search to find this document as well by simply typing 2020 Friend at Court.
As many questions this time of year arise surrounding the Ohio Department of Education's requirement to possess a pupil activity permit, I'll touch on that briefly. This permit is a requirement of the Ohio Department of Education. The Ohio High School Athletic Association simply reiterates what is required by ODE. If you don't have this permit, please get it now. If you don't get one, you cannot coach. No individual should be coaching interscholastic tennis or any interscholastic sport if they do not possess the proper credentials. A requirement first implemented for coaches during the 2017-18 school year is a sudden cardiac arrest training, which is referred to as Lindsay's Law. This is required to be completed each year. So again, if you don't have your proper credentials, you cannot coach. So please make sure you are properly certified. In summary, no individual who has not been approved by the Board of Education or similar governing body may serve as an interscholastic coach. No one, except another player, may warm up a student or participate in pre-contest drills unless that individual has been properly approved and ODE certified. You cannot engage in any coaching activity if you have not been properly certified. It is important for us to instruct you regarding concussion management. Concussion training is part of what is required to obtain your pupil activity permit. Refer to the coach's manual for information regarding concussion protocol. If a student is removed from practice or competition due to a suspected concussion, the coach or official who removes the student shall not permit the student to return to practice and/or competition on the same day the student is removed. There are two conditions which must be satisfied in order for the student to return to practice competition at a later date. Those conditions are indicated in your coach's manual. Service animals are becoming more prevalent at interscholastic contests. Only dogs are recognized as service animals. The dog must be individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. You may only ask two questions when it comes to service animals. One, is a dog a service animal required because of a disability? And two, what work or task has a dog been trained to perform? You may not inquire as to the disability of the person or ask to see medical documentation that substantiates the need to have a service animal. This information, again, is included in your coach's manual. Many questions arise in regard to what is considered permissible instruction during the off-season. This is outlined in General Sports Regulation 8 as well as OHSAA General Sport Regulation 7. Instruction outside of the school season is permitted in an individual and/or group setting at any time from a school or a non-school coach, which means individuals can receive instruction 365 days out of the year, and they can receive that instruction from a school or a non-school coach. The restriction is on the school coach in regard to not making that instruction mandatory. So the school coach cannot make the instruction outside of the season mandatory.
Here is an image of the 2021 boys tennis calendar. This was taken from the OHSAA website boys tennis sport page. Coaching and tryouts may begin on March 8th, and the season begins on March 26, 2021.
Let's take a look at some other regulations affecting high school tennis. Scrimmages. Only one scrimmage is permitted during the regular season, and that scrimmage must be participated prior to the first regular season match. If you are going to participate in a scrimmage, you must participate in that one scrimmage prior to your first regular season match. Regular season contests. only 22 regular season contests are permitted for high school teams and/or individuals. Those 22 contests do not include the Ohio Tennis Coaches Association matches. 22 regular season contests are permitted, exclusive of the OHSAA matches that are used to determine the teams that participate in the OHSAA team tournament. In 7th and 8th grade, only 16 matches are permitted. 16 regular season matches are permitted for 7th and 8th grade teams and/or individuals. Out-of-state travel. You may only travel to a non-bordering state one time per season, and you may not miss school time to travel to that non-bordering state. So you cannot leave early to go to Florida or any state that does not border Ohio. When you participate in a bordering state, a state that is contiguous to Ohio, there is no restriction in regard to how many times you participate in that state or whether you miss school time. So if you travel to a bordering state, there's no restriction. Non-bordering states, you may only go one time per season, and there could be absolutely no loss of school time. If you travel to a non-bordering state and leave school early, you're automatically out of the OHSAA state tennis tournament. To further clarify what constitutes a contest regarding season limitations, if a team participates in a round-robin tournament, where the tournament typically has a format in which a school team plays a different school team in a dual match format, which means there's 3 singles and 2 doubles matches. Team A plays Team B, then Team A plays Team C, etc. In this round-robin format, each team contest would count as one contest in the season limitation. This would not be just one contest in the season limitation. Again, see the tennis regulations for a description of what constitutes a contest. It is important to distinguish between a school contest and an individual singles and/or doubles match. 3 singles matches and 2 doubles matches comprise a single school contest. It would be a violation to have a full complement of participants and to choose to play a contest with singles only or doubles only. This is not the way dual contests are played among member schools in the state of Ohio. It has come to the attention of the OHSAA that member schools are not adhering to OHSAA tennis regulations as it pertains to the manner in which school tennis contests, these dual contests, will be participated. Schools have been permitting all singles or all doubles competition, and this simply is not permissible. A school contest shall consist of 3 singles matches and 2 doubles matches when there are the appropriate number of participants available. Again, a school dual contest, which is a contest between 2 schools, shall consist of 3 individual singles participants and 2 doubles teams, which would indicate 7 different individuals participate. You should not be playing all doubles or all singles matches. Follow OHSAA contest protocol when participating in a dual contest. No student shall participate in both a singles and a doubles match in the same contest. A contest is won when a team reaches 3 points, but a contest does not conclude when a team reaches 3 points. Unless darkness or weather or some other circumstance interrupts a contest, permit students to complete their matches. Do not simply conclude the contest when a team reaches 3 points. Permit all players to participate.
In a recently revised non-interscholastic rule, I want to emphasize a few things that have been in place for at least 2 years now. Students may participate in 2 non-interscholastic contests while a member of their school tennis team. This is, of course, provided that the student has received an approved waiver from the OHSAA office prior to participating in the non-interscholastic event. The non-interscholastic event must have a clearly defined end and start date and must conclude within 7 days of the start date. No waiver will be granted for participation in any non-interscholastic contest that occurs on or after April 25th, 2021. Thus, any non-interscholastic events seeking a waiver approval for must conclude by April 24th. There is still the traditional non-interscholastic date, meaning there is a date on which no non-interscholastic participation may occur on or after unless a waiver has been pre-approved. That date for boys tennis season this year is April 12th, 2021. This is very important. If a student participates non-interscholastically on or after April 12th this year without having received prior approval from the OHSAA through the waiver process discussed in the previous slide, that student shall be ineligible for the OHSAA tournament. Again, no student may request a waiver for a contest that extends beyond April 24th, 2021. No part of a contest may extend beyond April 24th. Here is a screenshot of a previous year's waiver request. The most current copy is again available on the Boys Tennis Sport page from OHSAA.org. Please familiarize yourself with this form in advance of the season if you have any players that anticipate needing to use this waiver. Here is a screenshot of the Boys Tennis Sport page on OHSAA.org. Most of the resources that we will be referencing throughout this presentation are available under the left side of the web page under Regulations, Policies, and Manuals. This will include the very important items such as the tennis regulations and the non-interscholastic event waiver.
School representative. No team or individual will be permitted to participate in an interscholastic contest unless accompanied by a coach or a person authorized by the Board of Education or similar governing body. Ensure that your coaching permit is updated and valid. All interscholastic tennis players must be accompanied by an appropriate person authorized by the member school's governing board. Interscholastic tennis coaches must have the appropriate Ohio Department of Education credentials in order to coach. No individual, a person, and this includes a personal private club coach, no individual may coach during the scholastic season who is not board approved and properly certified. More information on the non-interscholastic rule, which is Tennis Regulation 2. Players cannot participate in non-school tennis. They cannot participate non-interscholastically in competitions or events during their school season without receiving the proper pre-approved waiver. Remind your players that they cannot go out and participate in club competitions, between club competitions, or any event that involves competition without a pre-approved waiver once they have participated for the school team. And also remind them of the non-interscholastic date in regard to joining your school team late because they want to continue to participate non-interscholastically. Again, this information is in the coach's manual and detailed more there.
Again, no student who has participated in a non-school event on or after the non-interscholastic date, which again this year is April 12, 2021, will be eligible to participate in the OHSAA Boys State Tennis Tournament. Again, unless the proper waiver has been obtained in advance of the non-interscholastic participation. The tournament dates are listed on this slide. Sectional tournament from May 10th to May 15th. The district tournament from May 17th to May 22nd, and the state tournament, which will again take place at the Linder Family Tennis Center in Mason, Ohio on May 28th and 29th. Please note, unless an earlier date's been established by your respective district athletic board, there can be no earlier start to sectionals other than 2 days prior to the established date above.
I want to remind you that a 10-point tiebreaker in lieu of playing a third set is permitted when a contest has already been decided. So that means that one team has already reached 3 points. But both coaches have to mutually agree to play this 10-point tiebreaker when a contest has already been decided. I want to reiterate information as it relates to contest limitations. No member of a school team may participate in more than 3 matches per day. No member of a school team may participate in more than 22 school contests. There's a 22 contest limitation for high schools and a 16 contest limitation for middle schools. Again, Ohio Tennis Coaches Association matches do not count in this contest limitation. For middle school students may also not participate in more than 3 matches per day. So please review the 2018-19 tennis regulations for how to determine when a contest counts as more than one contest, such as when participating in a conference, league, or invitational tournament or a round-robin tournament. If playing pro sets, and pro sets are permitted in tournaments only, not in dual matches. When playing pro sets, 5 8-game pro sets are permitted per day. And again, these pro sets may be played in tournaments only. Continuous coaching. Continuous coaching is permitted. In addition to coaching at the end of games 3, 5, 7, etc., and the end of each set, a coach may coach their own players anytime during the 20 seconds between points, as long as the coach does not interfere with actual playing on the court. A coach shall not initiate a conversation with an opposing player. A coach may sit or stand near the net post and must stay within the area where the players' chairs or benches will be located if those chairs or benches are not provided, or the coach may be outside the court. The penalties for continuous coaching violations. The purpose of continuous coaching is to be able to quickly offer advice to the player without delaying the play. If a coach violates the guidelines for continuous coaching, he or she will receive a warning for the first violation. Subsequent violations will result in his or her player receiving a point penalty on the court where the violation occurred. Continuous coaching penalties are similar to time violations, and these penalties are included in the coach's manual. Additional information about continuous coaching can be found in the Boys Tennis Coaches Manual, which is on the OHSAA website. Please do not interfere with a match or speak to an opposing player. Uniforms, uniforms, uniforms. All team members must wear an appropriate school uniform or proper tennis attire, preferably in school colors. Let the students represent the school. Proper tennis attire is defined as clothing specifically manufactured for tennis wear. Any lettering or pictures on clothing and/or headgear, which includes a hat or a visor, must pertain to the school name or emblem, such as a little giant, the student's name, or be patriotic in nature. Example, United States flag. No phrases, quotes, or slogans shall be permitted on the tennis uniform. Manufacturers' names or logos are permitted, provided they do not exceed 1.5 inches in height. Girls have the option of tennis dress or school uniform. Doubles teams players shall wear light color tops. Doubles team players shall wear light color tops. Make sure the uniforms are manufactured for tennis wear. No cutoffs or any such attire will be permitted. Any visible undergarments that extend below the uniform shorts, dress, or skirt shall be the same color of the shorts, dress, or skirt, or represent school colors, or be all white or all black or all gray. If a uniform dress is not of the appropriate length, please have the student wear an appropriate undergarment. This dress code shall be enforced by the home school coach or tournament director. Any clothing deemed to be reflective or distractive in nature shall not be permitted. Failure to comply will result in a player being denied the opportunity to participate. All interscholastic coaches should be familiar with the OHSAA lightning and inclement weather policy. There is a 30-minute wait from the last sound of thunder or the last sight of lightning. There's a 30-minute delay. If you should hear thunder or see lightning during that 30-minute delay, the clock starts over and you have to wait another 30 minutes. There are absolutely no exceptions, and everyone shares responsibility to make sure that the lightning and inclement weather policy is adhered to. Several times I have referred to the OTCA, which is the Ohio Tennis Coaches Association. The Ohio Tennis Coaches Association sponsors the state team tournament. The OHSAA's tournament is an individual tournament. The OTCA also sponsors all Ohio awards, scholar athlete recognition, the state tennis clinic, SCI awards, Hall of Fame, scholarships, etc. And they also help to select the coaches that serve as the state tournament officials. Thank you, Ohio Tennis Coaches Association, for your support of interscholastic tennis. Now let's look ahead to tournament play. The Ohio High School Athletic Association is represented by 6 district athletic boards, and it is the district athletic boards that organize sectional and district tennis tournaments. The Ohio High School Athletic Association conducts the state tournament. OHSAA tournaments are about representation. Preliminary tournaments in a defined geographic area of the state produce winners that move on to larger tournaments in a larger geographic area, and so on all the way to the state tournament. We consider our tournaments to be representation tournaments and not necessarily best of the best tournaments. We do not recede as we move through the tournaments. The number of individuals who are able to advance to the state tournament from the 6 athletic districts is determined by the number of school teams that participate in those respective athletic districts. Thus, if there are more school teams that participate in the Northeast, there are more individuals who advance to the state tournament from the Northeast. That is what is meant by representation. The few remaining slides are a collaboration between the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Tennis Coaches Association, and many of the rules come from USTA Rules of Tennis. I want to continue to provide information regarding dual contest and match information. A dual contest consists of 3 individual singles participants and 2 doubles teams. Matches are 2 out of 3 tie-break sets. No player in a contest may play both singles and doubles. Players are to play in order of rank, with the best singles player at first singles, the next best at second singles. The same applies to doubles teams. It is not necessary for the best singles player to play singles. That person may play doubles. Players playing out of rank order is considered stacking and could result in forfeiting the match. Coaches should exchange lineups in writing prior to the start of the contest. The home coach serves as a referee for the contest. Warm-ups is 10 minutes prior to the start of the contest, during which practice serves will be taken. Warm-ups are permitted prior to each respective match. No ad scoring may be used on all courts in dual matches if both coaches agree prior to the start of the contest. Note, the 10 point tiebreak rule in lieu of the third set when a contest has already been decided is permitted if both coaches agree. Keeping score in a match. The server's score is called first. The server's score is called first. Points are love, 15, 30, 40, game. Of course, you may have to do advantage if it's tied at 40. Use scorecards on each court when available. The server announces the score before starting each point. The server announces the score before starting each point. Disputes over the score shall be resolved using one of the following methods. 1. Count all points and games agreed upon by the players. Replay only the disputed points or games. Play from a score mutually agreeable to all players. Or number 3, spin a racket or toss a coin. Coaches or spectators may not tell the players what the score is. The players have to work it out. Making calls. A player makes calls on their own side of the net. A player calls all shots landing on or aimed at the player's side of the net. This includes not-ups, through balls, double bounces, touches, etc. Any ball coming towards a player is his or her call. The opponent gets the benefit of the doubt. When a match is played without officials, which most interscholastic matches are, they're played without officials, the players are responsible for making decisions, particularly line calls. There is a subtle difference between player decisions and those of an on-court official. An official impartially resolves a problem involving a call, whereas a player is guided by the principle that any doubt must be resolved in favor of the opponent. A ball touching any part of the line is good. If any part of a ball touches a line, the ball is good. A ball 99% out is still 100% good. On-court monitors. If a request is made for a monitor to go on court, the monitor will only rule on calls which are challenged by the player with a verbal request. The decision of the monitor is final. To continue to argue a call after the monitor is ruled may result in an unsporting conduct penalty. The only calls made automatically by the monitor are obvious foot faults and lets. Monitors should not be other players, students, parents, or general spectators. Foot faults. Players may not call foot faults on one another. Players should inform their coach if they suspect foot faulting is taking place. Only coaches, monitors can call foot faults. Hindrance issues. A player who claims a hindrance must stop play as soon as possible. Singles players should not talk during points. Talking between doubles players when the ball is moving toward them is permitted. Doubles players should not talk when the ball is moving toward their opponent's side of the court. When talking interferes with an opponent's ability to play a ball, it is considered a hindrance. Ever popular electronic devices. If the cell phone or other electronic device of a player or that player's coach on the court rings or makes any such noise during the match, said player will receive a warning and each subsequent offense will be assessed a point penalty. If the cell phone or other electronic device of a player or that player's coach on the court, quote unquote, rings or the ball is in play, the player loses a point being played. The use of any electronic devices, such as cell phones, digital messaging systems, radios, MP3 devices, CD and DVD players, cassette players, and watches that receive digital messages to receive coaching and other information is prohibited. None of these devices shall be used to receive coaching. The first offense, the player will be warned and each subsequent offense will be a point penalty. Continuous play. As a principle, play should be continuous from the time the match starts, and that is when the first serve of the match is put in play, until the match finishes. Between points, a maximum of 20 seconds is allowed. When the players change ends at the end of a game, a maximum of 90 seconds is permitted. However, after the first game of each set and during a tie-break game, play shall be continuous and the player shall change ends without a rest. Note, the 20-second time limit does not apply if a player has to chase a stray ball. At the end of each set, there shall be a set break of a maximum of 120 seconds or 2 minutes. The maximum times start from the moment that one point finishes until the first serve is struck for the next point. If, for reasons outside the player's control, clothing, footwear, or necessary equipment, excluding the racket, is broken or needs to be replaced, the player may be allowed reasonable extra time to rectify the problem. No extra time shall be given to allow a player to recover. However, a player suffering from a treatable medical condition may be allowed one medical timeout of 5 minutes for the treatment of that medical condition. A limited number of toilet change of attire breaks may also be allowed. Medical timeouts and bleeding timeouts. Play shall be continuous as defined by USTA regulations. In case of injury or illness, after evaluation by a coach or trainer, a player will be allowed a maximum of 1 5-minute timeout for treatment, after which the player must resume play or forfeit the match. In the case of stoppage of play involving bleeding, bodily fluids, asthma attacks, and/or diabetic attacks, the affected player is entitled time to stop the bleeding, bodily fluids, and clean the affected area, administer medication, or administer insulin. Insulin medication may be administered either on or off the court. If clothing becomes soaked with blood or bodily fluids, the player must change clothing. When there is a stoppage in play due to an issue involving blood or bodily fluids, the stoppage shall not be counted as an injury timeout. If the bleeding bodily fluids or the removal of the blood bodily fluids, asthma attack, or insulin attack takes more than 15 minutes, or if the official in charge determines that the continuation of the match would likely involve continued interruptions, such as after the third stoppage of play, and thus would not be fair to the opponent, the official shall require the player who is bleeding, has a bodily fluids issue, or having an asthma attack or insulin attack, the official shall require the individual to retire. Remember, the 5-minute injury timeout is for treatment of the injury after an evaluation has been made. Each player on a doubles team is entitled to an injury timeout. If a player gets sick on the court or if there is blood on the court, the match may need to be moved to another court. You will want to, in the case of an incident involving bleeding or bodily fluid, you will want to make sure the court is cleaned or moved to another court and that the contaminated materials are disposed of. When players are playing multiple matches in a day, please make reasonable accommodations for students who are playing these multiple matches on the same day. Provide an adequate rest period for students who have had an extended match or who are playing in extreme weather conditions, especially hot and humid weather conditions. Safety first, safety first, safety first. The Ohio Tennis Coaches Association and the OHSAA Code of Conduct. The following Code of Conduct has been adopted by the Ohio Tennis Coaches Association and is used for all OHSAA tournament and school contests. In some cases, it supersedes USTA regulations. Players can incur code violation penalties for actions not only during the match, but also before and after the match. In dual contests, even though the home coach is a referee, both coaches may and shall enforce these regulations. It is suggested that before each tournament contest match, each participant be advised that the OHSAA point penalty system will be enforced. Penalties for code violations are cumulative and follow the listed progressions. Coach's Code of Conduct time violations. In OHSAA-sponsored tournaments where there is a meeting of the manager and coaches, the penalties for time violations are as follows. 15 minutes late for the meeting, loss of coin toss plus 1 game. Each additional 5 minutes late, loss of game up to 3 games. Note that these consequences hold for all players for which the coach is responsible. Implementation of these penalties is at the discretion of the tournament manager. Number 2, not starting play within 20 seconds after a 10-minute warm-up. 3, the receiver must play at the reasonable pace of the server and must be ready to receive when the server is ready to serve. 4, 90-second rule on game changeover. 5, violations of continuous coaching guidelines. The consequences, the penalties for violations in number 2, 3, 4, and 5 are first offense, warning, each subsequent offense, loss of point. Codes of conduct, unsporting conduct. Number 6, any unsporting conduct, including but not limited to 6.1, prolonging an argument after being directed to play. 6.2, visible or audible profanity. 6.3, abuse of racket, tennis balls, or equipment. 6.4, abuse of conduct by a player or a person associated with a player. 6.5, taunting or baiting an opponent. Any attempt to embarrass, ridicule, or demean another person will be considered unsporting conduct. 6.6, in an officiated match, excessive overrules by an official or excessive appeals by a player can be deemed unsporting conduct and penalized as such. The penalties for violations above, for any violation of any of the items under number 6, the penalties would include first offense, point. Second offense, game. Third offense, disqualification. These are minimum regulations, and depending on severity, a coach or official may issue a penalty more severe, including immediate disqualification. Note in the previous 2 slides that those are minimum regulations, and that depending upon the severity of the situation, a coach or official may issue a penalty more severe than is indicated. The following are code violations that result in immediate disqualifications: verbal or physical abuse of a player or official, extreme unsporting behavior, not resuming play after 5 minutes following treatment of an injury or illness, being late for a tournament match, 10 minutes, after the match has been called to start. This is after the coach has reported to the tournament manager that the team is indeed present. A team still has a predetermined time to report to the tournament at the sectional and district tournament level. Again, these are minimum regulations, and depending upon the severity of the situation, a coach or official may issue a penalty more severe than is indicated. The Ohio High School Athletic Association's ejection policy is different than the Ohio Tennis Coaches Association Code of Conduct. The OHSAA ejection policy indicates that a student or coach who is ejected from a contest is removed from the contest for the remainder of that day and also the next 2 contests at the same level of the ejection. All ejections are to be reported to the appropriate athletic director, who will report the ejection to the OHSAA. In OHSAA tournament play, the tournament manager shall report the ejection to the OHSAA. The OHSAA ejection policy is included in the OHSAA handbook. In order to teach your student athlete to respect the game, you must respect the game of tennis. So you and your student athletes should speak with courtesy, act with dignity, and play with pride.
This concludes the 2021 OHSAA Boys Tennis State Rules Interpretation Meeting. Again, please do not call our office for attendance verification. You should immediately conclude this presentation and check your state meeting attendance credit on your myOHSAA profile upon completion. Also, please contact your athletic director to ensure that they are able to see your state meeting credit reflected in myOHSAA as well. Thank you for all you do for our OHSAA student athletes during this difficult year. We want to wish you a healthy and successful season ahead. Best of luck.